So, welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call, a weekly call which happens on every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And within this particular call, we typically have Microsoft speakers with certain exceptions. Now, technically, Paolo is presenting today, but he's also a vendor for Microsoft, so that's kind of our excuse on things. But typically it's Microsoft presenters, so PMs, cloud advocates, engineers, and so on, who are working and telling you the stories directly from the Microsoft. And then we have the other calls where we have community presenters more. Now, today we have 3 different demos coming up after the initial recap of all of the assets and capabilities and news which are available for you to take advantage. We'll start with Majesty and Waldek related on simulate handling Teams Admin Center notifications for Microsoft Graph connectors. That's actually a really, really cool capability. Paolo is going to follow up on creating Copilot actions for Microsoft Lists with Copilot Studio. And then Eric is going to follow up on the third demo as building personalized content ACE as an adaptive card extension for Viva Connection based on user profile attributes, so showing different kind of information based on the user who's accessing that. Really, really cool scenarios across the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. Again, Copilot being from the Microsoft Power Platform side more, I would say. But again, everything in Microsoft 365 Power Platform, we're working together. It is a joint Microsoft Cloud which is working great together. Now, we have a lot of assets available for you to get started. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know whenever the recordings and the individual demo videos and all of the other videos are getting released. There's a lot of marketing teams and engineering teams who are using that channel for their publishing their content, which is great. We have our LinkedIn group for discussions and updates. We do have actually nowadays LinkedIn page as well, which I should actually update in here. We have open source assets and we have a lot of samples available, but that's why finding the relevant sample might be a bit difficult. That's why we have the sample galleries, which are making it easier to find the relevant sample for you. And all of the URLs and all of the assets and all of the options available and details available at AKMS Community Home. Redesign of that website is progressing, which is looking really, really good. I had a meeting earlier today with Stefan Bauer, and it's looking really, really, really awesome. A few more things which we need to adjust, and we'll get the new website in place as well. Now, you are in a community call, so you might know that there's a lot of community calls which we're doing. So please take advantage of downloading the recurrent invites from this call. So we have the weekly call, 8 a.m. on every single Tuesday at Pacific time. Then we have the Power Platform monthly call happening tomorrow, once a month, but tomorrow is the March call of a Sadens monthly call. And then we have the Thursday series, which is happening either the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community demos or the Viva Connection and SharePoint framework, typically with community demos as well. Now, we do recommend downloading the recurrent invites because that will fix the time zones always for those meetings. So right now we are in this time zone mess, so to say, because US already moved to summertime. Europe will follow the summertime within 2 weeks by end of the March. And right, that means that at least my calendar looks crazy because all of the meetings went depending on which time zone the meeting has been created. But if you download the recurrent invite, you will get the meeting in the right schedule within your calendar. If you create it by yourself, then it's not necessarily always in the right timing. Now, you can download recurrent invites as a community course URL, and you can always get the latest agenda details from the Meetup service, which is a great service to stay up to date on what's happening from the community call perspective, and a free service as well. Now, we also have, for a lot of those community calls, we do welcome our community to do demos. So it's not just the Microsoft who's telling how you should be using things. We're super interested in seeing how did you use the things? What did you build? What are the learnings? If you found a new feature in out-of-the-box services and out-of-the-box products, those are absolutely welcome. If you build something cool looking on out-of-the-box features, building capabilities, JSON, SharePoint sites, Power Platform, Power Apps, you want to show that, absolutely welcome to be presented within the community calls because we want to learn from what we're building. And please sign up by filling in the form at AKMS Community Biggest Demo. And typically it's Luisa Fries who's going to then contact you on getting you scheduled in the future community calls. We do have a lot of assets to get started on the Microsoft Cloud. Microsoft 365 Developer Program. English is hard. Microsoft 365 Developer Program is one way of signing up. There has been, however, a bit of a challenges or changes on that program. For now, it's kind of in a pause. If you have a Visual Studio subscription, you can still sign up for the program. If you don't, we'd recommend you to use the Microsoft 365 trials, or you will pay the €6 a month or €12 a month for a single account Microsoft 365 tenants. That's not an optimal situation. We're trying to get back on providing you a free tenant. The problem is that there was malicious people and bad behaving people who then took advantage of these free tenants. So we as a Microsoft, we would love to give you this, but then when you give stuff for free, there's always those bad apples which then use those things in the wrong usage, and then we all suffer from those people. Unfortunately, that has happened in here, and that's the reason behind the scenes why it's in kind of a pause. We're trying to figure out how to enable that again. The plan is to get it back online, hopefully within later this year. Now, there's a lot of assets available from Microsoft Learn to learn those things. We also have our different podcast and video blogging shows, PMP Weekly, Mondays at Microsoft, which happened yesterday. It's a bi-weekly show, and then the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast. Now, I did mention our sample galleries. We didn't update the slide, but it's now more than 1,900 samples from Microsoft and community from this one centralized location. So what we're doing here is aggregating all of the samples across all of the repos from multiple different organizations to make it super easy for you to find the relevant sample for you. Now, when you find the sample in a GitHub, you might be wondering, okay, so this is in GitHub. What do I do now? I'm not familiar with GitHub. And that's why we have our Sharing is Caring initiative. And we're getting closer and closer to restart the program in here. Right, Hugo?
Absolutely. Sharing is Caring is an initiative where we can help you get started. Right? We know how scary it can be to contribute to open source initiatives, how to speak in public, how to present on community calls. And we've got the sessions for you. We run these sessions as small sessions that are never recorded. We'll never make fun of anybody because it's a safe space, and we
Except
will. I keep on making fun of Dave the whole time as we're presenting. But anyways, if you join us, we'll actually make sure that, for example, if you join us for the first-time contributor, we'll actually walk you through how to create your first GitHub pull request. And at the end of the session, you will have done your first pull request. And so this is wonderful. You can join us by going to aka.ms/sharingiscaring, and you can register for any of the upcoming sessions. Once you have contributed, whether it's through Sharing is Caring or on your own, once you have created a contribution and it's a recognized contribution, we will actually issue you a badge. And we use Credly for this. So these are the same people who used to do the Microsoft certification badges. Now, this is at no cost to you. And you can show it on your LinkedIn profile. You can show it on your blog. You can put it on your resume if you want to. And it definitely shows people that you know your stuff, right? That you not only, it's not like you've studied for something, you actually worked on something and you made something better for the community. And so this is wonderful. Again, no cost to you. All you need to do is to go to aka.ms/community/recognition, give us your email address and your GitHub account, and we'll associate it to. And when we find a recognized contribution, we will automatically issue you a badge. And we look forward to see what you have to do. If I could speak, we look forward to English. Yeah. It's hard.
Canadians, they just, I don't.
It is my second language. We look forward to see what you have contributed to the community. Back to you, Vesa.
Thank you, Hugo. You passed the slide. Really, really cool. Excellent. Good job. Now, quick recap on the events which are coming. And April 13th, we'll have the first big event of the year, which will be the Microsoft 365 Community Conference happening in Orlando at the M365 Conf. You can find more details. A lot of insights, a lot of new announcements coming up in here as well. A lot of speakers. So looking really, really cool. We also have the European Collaboration Summit coming in the 14th of May. That's happening in Wiesbaden, which is close to Frankfurt. If you're wondering, Wiesbaden, what is that? But it's basically flying to Frankfurt Airport, and you go not to Frankfurt downtown, you go to the other direction, and it's closer than Frankfurt downtown. So it's pretty close on the airport, and a lot of awesome events and workshops on there as well. Now, we also have the TechCon 365 coming this year, happening in Seattle, DC, and Dallas. June 3rd is the first date, what's happening in Seattle. Hopefully you can join there if you are on that side of the pond. And then we have the Microsoft Power Platform conference happening in Las Vegas on September 18th to 20. And that's picture tells a lot. So that was a really, really cool keynote set up last year in the big arena in the MGM, and Charles was actually taking all of the audience with nice lighting as well. Now, on top of these bigger conferences, there's a lot of smaller events happening all around the world. Some of these are paid, some of them are free, some of these are remote, some of these are in person. These are great opportunities to you to join the community and get to know the community. So really networking and finding other people who are building similar kind of things as you are in the Power Platform or in Microsoft 365. Now, on the news side, it was actually a super busy news week. I'm not going to go through all of these again. I will just post a links on the slides. If you're not familiar with all of the updates which are happening across Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's so many products, so many things and events and all of that happening, and it might be a bit difficult to stay up to date on all of the things across the stack. But now you have the links, you can follow up on them afterwards. Not going to deep dive too much on specific things now, just watching quickly anything super cool. Not going to mention any of them because then somebody feels jealous about getting mentioned separately. Now, before we go to the actual stars of the day, started by Majesty and Waldek, let's do a quick group photo, and I will be in this picture as well. Let me put everything on, and let's go to the together mode, and I will share the screen in a second. And now that I have a fiber, which seems to be working, this is good. I'm no longer concerned related on upstream purposes, but hopefully we can get the quick together mode to work. No, don't do this to me. Yes, the fiber is here. Oh, there we go. It's still pixelated. No, this is no. Oh, there, it's getting better. Cool.
It's
cool.
pixelated
So
here too.
bad.
You're fine, man. You're fine. There you go.
It's getting better. It's getting better. It's actually kind of funny.
No,
to
Vesa, it is
was
the fiber. It is the
It
fiber.
is the fiber.
It is the fiber. Bad fiber.
Yes, it's bad fiber. Cool. We have 50 seats in a room. Let's wait for a few more seconds before we start waving. I will put the recording on, and we are seeing, I can see Rachel on the second row. Rachel, I'll follow up on your DM pretty soon in Twitter. I saw that, just letting you know. Casper on the middle laughing. This is good. A lot of people laughing. This is good. Let me put the recording on. Let's do some hand waving, and we will grab a GIF animation out of this. Excellent. 50. It's a full house. Chow on the front row. A lot of familiar faces again. Natalie on the back. Yeah, a lot of MVPs again on here. Excellent. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that and share it in Twitter and in social media. Excellent. Twitter and in LinkedIn are the typical locations where we do that. Cool. I will do that in a second, but let's go to the actual stars of the day. So we'll start with Majesty and Waldek, then we move to Paolo, and then Eric as the last, but definitely not the least, and demo of the day. But Majesty and Waldek, I think you are ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Can I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be talking with you all today. My name is Majesty Uwagerikpe. I am a product manager on the Microsoft Graph Connectors team, and I'm so excited to be collaborating with my colleague Waldek, who is a Microsoft 365 developer advocate, to talk to you all about Graph Connectors and Dev Proxy. So with Dev Proxy, you can test your Graph Connector Teams app end-to-end in minutes, and today we'll show you how. Brief overview of what Microsoft Graph Connectors are. So Graph Connectors are a way for organizations to bring their line of business data into Microsoft Graph, which is the data fabric that powers intelligent experiences such as Copilot for M365, Microsoft Search, and more. So you have content in ServiceNow, Jira, CRMs, enterprise websites, and more. Microsoft Graph Connectors are the perfect way to get that data into Graph. But why exactly would you want to package your Graph Connector as a Teams app? Well, there are a multitude of potential reasons. Packaging as a Teams app allows you to have a simple way for admins to go and deploy their Graph Connector without relying on you too heavily. So you don't have to have a high-touch engagement with admins. And secondly, you can have a single app manifest for multiple Teams app constructs. So if you've already built like a message extension or a bot for your organization, you can just amend your manifest to include your Graph Connector as well. If you are building a Graph Connector that's meant to be consumed by other organizations, you can submit that Teams app to Microsoft, and we can validate it for you in Copilot. So you can have that confidence that, hey, when they go and deploy it, it's going to work as expected in Copilot. In addition, you get that added discoverability by having your app included in the Teams Admin Center. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever built a Microsoft Graph Connectors Teams app before, but when you do that, admins can go and deploy it with a single click of a toggle in the Teams admin center. So it's a super easy thing for admins to do. But that begs the question, what exactly do developers need to do to kind of unlock the stress-free deployment for admins? Well, let me tell you how. In your app manifest, you'll need to include a URL that can set the webhook notifications whenever an admin requests your Graph Connector to be turned on or to be turned off. And then there's a couple of tasks that you have to handle in order to make sure that end-to-end experience flows smoothly. So first, you have to accept the webhook notification whenever the admin requests for a change in the Graph Connector. Once you do that, you have to send a 202 response code back, verify the validation token that comes with the request, and then retrieve an access token from Microsoft Entra in order to access the Graph APIs to go and create your connection, register the schema, and do all those things. When you create the connection, you have to include what we call a Graph Connectors ticket and a connector ID, which are two fields that are going to be that initial webhook notification that you received. Once you've done that, you go and provision the connection schema and begin ingesting items. On the flip side, if the admin had requested for the connection to be deleted, you need to go ahead and delete that connection once you've handled the notification, validated the token, and done all of those tasks. So this is where Dev Proxy comes into play. Dev Proxy is an API simulator and a command line tool that allows you to test your Graph Connector end-to-end in minutes. With Dev Proxy, you don't need to have access to an M3F tenant or have admin privilege within that tenant in order to go and test out your deployment. You don't need to wait for any validation tokens to expire because it is a simulator. So that really takes down your testing time from hours to minutes. As well as within Dev Proxy, we give you helpful error messages with each error and warning that you get. But I believe the best way to understand the value of this tool is to see it in action. So without further ado, I'll hand off to Waldek, who can show you Dev Proxy in action. Take it away.
Excellent.
Waldek.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. Let me share my screen and please let me know when it's on. It should be on a screen near you in 3, 2, 1.
And we have it. Take it away.
Brilliant. All right. So as you've heard, right, like you heard that it's a great way to package a connector as a team set because that gives admins the ability to control it. So you don't need to manually kick off jobs and so forth and so on. And the process to do all of that, to test whether the code you wrote is working as intended, it includes a few steps. And the cool thing is that with Proxy, we can simplify it. So what you're seeing on the screen is on the right-hand side, this is kind of the API that is responsible for receiving the webhook from tag, from Teams admin center, and then reacting to it. So in other words, when admin will choose to enable the connector, we need to create a connection, provision schema, and start the initial ingestion. And when they turn off the connector, we need to remove the connection, and we need to do all of that, right? And then on the left-hand side, we will have the Proximox. We will get to that in a moment. So imagine you wrote this code. Now you want to test it. Well, you would typically need to take the Teams app, package it, upload it, and so forth and so on. But there is an easy way, right? So let me go to a terminal. And first, let me do two things. So one is, let me start this API, because at the end of the day, this is an API, right? So this is basically an API that would run typically in a cloud. In this case, I don't need to deploy anything anywhere. It's just going to run on my local box. And again, this is the actual code that I would run in production with the caveat that it runs currently on my local box. I don't deploy anything anywhere. And you can see here a message that it's available on localhost 3000, right? So typically beyond this stage, if you were to test it in real without doing that in Proxy, you would need to open up a tunnel to expose the local host on the internet and so forth and so on. So again, additional dependencies that you need to put in place. We don't need that because again, we will simulate all of that. So in other tab, let me start developer proxy with a few things that we put in place to make this possible for you to simulate this whole experience. Let me clear the screen a bit. All right. First things first, what is the first step when admin enables a connector? They click a toggle, which will then cause the Teams admin center to send a request to our API. Let's simulate that. So here I will press W to issue the web request. And in this case, this is going to be the same request that Teams admin center would send to our API. We see that, we send the notification, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. Let's have a look while this runs in the background, because we will have a bunch of operations here. So we had our request here. If we go all the way up, we validated the token because that's something that we have to do, right? So every single time your API is being called and it's not anonymous, you got to check if the token is real. He validated, and we validated actually using the actual real code that we would use in production. We haven't changed anything about this code to work in proxy, right? Like it's exactly the same code that validates a token. Then we create a connection. The connection is done. We can see here, right? So in here, we go all the way up. We do what? We get the keys to validate token. We get an access token to talk to graph. Then we create the connection. We create schema. And then we wait for it even to provision. We simulate that too. And then we finally ingest items. All of these calls, like here, you can see we're calling graph. Again, from this app, we're calling graph. This is actual code that we would run in production, but none of these calls is leaving my box. It's all local host simulated in proxy. So this is our actual real code, the same code that you would run in production, simulated and tested in minutes without deploying anything to a tenant, admin center, building Teams apps, anything around that. We have the ability to validate end-to-end that all of this works. Now let's do a quick check, right? Imagine that I did something wrong. So let me restart proxy and let's see, will this actually help us and will this tell us when we do things wrong? So let me stop the API. Let me do a small adjustment. Let's say that when we say send a 202, I want to send a status of accepted. Let's do this. Let's see if this is the right way to do things. So let me restart the API. All right, it's ready. And let me reissue this request from tag. And there you go, failure. Why? What's wrong? Well, because Teams admin center expects an empty response, and we included a message. In real life, this would fail, and now you would need to stop the whole thing, delete the Teams app, go back to your code, adjust it, repackage, upload it, re-enable. Now you don't need to do any of these activities. You can change it on the fly because it's on the local box. But again, you have the benefit that it feels like real. It has all the right ingredients. So how all of this works? We have quite a few things in place. Let me stop all of that in case I run something that I don't intend to, right? So in proxy, we have a preset, which is basically a pre-configured set of options that we've got specifically for this case. Right, so one, we have some calls that we simulate around Microsoft Entra, and that is kind of doing two things. One is to allow the code to validate the token, and then two, to get an access token to graph. Again, all of these codes, all of these calls are mocks, but they are there. So all the SDKs like MSAL, Microsoft Graph SDK, they don't know that they are talking to something else than a real API. So we're simulating the exact calls that you've got here, like for OIDC endpoints that tell the SDK from where to get the keys that are being used to sign a token. Like all of this info is here. Then we have even things like, hey, like how like the actual keys that are being used to sign a token, so that again the code that can validate the token can actually do its job and it all goes through. And then finally, we even have a dummy, a token that we send and back. So in case in your code you check like, hey, do I have the right claims? Do I have the right rights? You can check that too. So this is one. Two, you've seen that I can issue the webhook from tag. Right? So this is being done here. And we actually have two options because, again, you can simulate either enabling a connector or turning it off. So we have two options enable. We only use one at a time because, like, it wouldn't make sense if at the same time you enable and disable it because your code wouldn't know what to do, right? So you will use either one, but we give you the ability, like we offer two of them so that you can easily here pick which one you want to use. And when you look what's in there, this is actually pretty cool because this is exactly the payload that your API would get from tag. The only thing that we change here is that, like here we say, okay, which state is it? Is it turning it off and on? There's a ticket which you need to include on the request. And again, if you don't, we will show you an error. So we want to give you contextual guidance that you can use to help you build the right code as quickly as you can, right? And give you help you find potential common issues as quickly as we can so that you can complete your job as easily as you can. So in other words, like if you missed a ticket, you passed the wrong value, send the wrong response, we will alert you of all of that so that you can fix it as quickly as you can. And then again, the final thing that we do is we dynamically generate a genuine access token signed by dev proxy. So again, that this code will validate the token, which is like, hey, this is a real thing. I'm okay. I can now do all of the work. Because if this would fail, none of this code would actually run. So that is exactly why, like the premise that we've got across the board is to let you keep your original code and write the actual code that you would run in production and not have to change any of it, or as little as we need to for you to be able to simulate it with proxy, right? And then the final part is, so once you've done that, we validated the token. The final call is what? To create a connection, provision schema, and ingest the items. And we mock all of that too, right? So in your code, you can check like, hey, if you create a connection, we give you a 201 with a response similar to real that you would get from the Microsoft Graph. When you remove a connection, we will give you a response 202, again, the same thing that you would get from Graph. When you create schema, we will give you exactly the same with a 202 with a URL that you can then call to check whether schema is already revisioned or not. And we will get even to the point where we say, you know what, it will be in progress first, and only then it will be eventually done. So with that, you can even test if your code properly waits for schema to be done, right, to be available, because that operation takes a moment or two, right? And then the final thing is, like, we even simulate adding activities that increase the relevance of all the items you ingest to Microsoft Graph, right? And then the final part, when you ingest the items, we simulate that too. So with that, you have a toolkit that allows you to test the connector end to end, from the deployment to Teams as a Teams app, to validate like the whole flow around that, to creating the connection, provisioning schema, ingesting the items, and even deleting the connection. With that, you've got the ability to verify all of that on your own box without a tenant, and giving you kind of the confidence, right, that once this code runs and it works, you know, you have the confidence that it will work as intended in production. So with that, I will give it back to Vesa now. And if there's anything you would like to ask, do reach out to us or to Majesty. I don't know if you have any additional things to add or any slides.
No, I don't. Thank you, Waldek, for kind of showing this off to the community. And please feel free to leave any questions you have in the chat.
Absolutely. And we will drop some links so that you can try this too. Thank you, folks.
Excellent. Thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Majesty. Really, really cool stuff. Awesome automation as well. And thank you, Paolo, for starting sharing the screen. We can see the slides. We're right on the schedule, so take it away.
Yes, thank you, Vesa. And today we are going to see how we can create Copilot actions with Microsoft Copilot Studio in order to interact with Microsoft lists. We have been already covering many topics about building custom Copilots with Copilot Studio. And today we are going to see something that I think is really interesting and exciting. So first of all, like usual, let me set the context. And as I said, we are going to use Microsoft Copilot Studio, or MCS, as the acronym nowadays for Microsoft Copilot Studio. Used to be an acronym for something else in the past. And we can use it to interact with external systems like Power Platform connectors, flows built with Power Automate, Dataverse data, and stuff like that. And of course, when it was already Power Virtual Agent before being the Microsoft Copilot Studio, we used to create topics to interact with those kind of external systems, configuring the input and the output arguments to properly process the interaction with an external system. Nowadays, we have the generative AI and the natural language processing. So using and relying on generative AI, we can provide I would say, a definitely better experience for our end users, so that we are not forced to use explicit syntax to trigger a topic and trigger a connector or a flow in the backend, but we can just speak natural language with our custom copilot, and the custom copilot will be able to understand what the goal of the user is, what the right action should be used, and what are the parameters to use for the action in order to trigger it, get back a response, and provide, again, using natural language processing, a human readable response to the user. So that said, let me first of all show you a sample in action, and then we will dig into it and see how we can build our own solution. And I will start from a very simple and basic scenario, where I'm going just to show you how you can add a custom action, even if it is not directly related to Microsoft List, inside a custom Copilot built with Copilot Studio. I have this custom Copilot that I've already created just for the sake of saving some time. And here you can see that in the section named Actions, which is, as you can clearly see, still under preview, you can create a new action. And by creating a new action, you can connect to already existing flows in Power Automate, to Power Platform connectors, and other stuff like that. And just to make a very simple and easy example, I'm going to search for weather, because I want to connect to the weather forecast connector. I can select this item, but we can even create new items directly from this UI, as you will see shortly. This is the connector that I want to use. And by clicking on the next button, I will be able to see that the Copilot Studio was able to understand what the inputs and the outputs are for my connector. And I can simply use this new action to trigger activities in the UI of my custom Copilot. Just to give you an idea and to save some time, because I don't want to have all of the duties of saving, publishing, and other stuff, I already created a really simplified version of the custom Copilot that I was talking about before. And I can use it, and here we have an action exactly like the one I was showing you. I can go in the overview, and just using the Test Copilot, for the sake of giving you the idea of what's going on, I can enable tracking and show the tracking mode window right here. So I can provide a prompt like, for example, what's the weather like in Milan today? Okay, I can look outside of the window to know that, but doesn't matter. So you can see what is the weather in Milan as well. And as you can see, the Copilot Studio was able to match the sentence in my prompt with the actual action that was the target of my request, as well as with the input arguments that were expected by the custom action. So the location and the units. And I've got back a response with the weather condition in my town. And of course, being based on generative AI and natural language processing, I can also see, and what about Seattle? And of course, the engine will be able to understand that I'm still talking about the same topic, the same goal, but now the input for the location will be Seattle, and I will get back the forecast for Seattle. So really cool, really impressive in my opinion. Now, of course, yeah, I see in the chat, metric is not Fahrenheit, doesn't matter. Don't be picky, Vesa, but still, okay. It is almost working as expected. So now let's say that we want to do something more, and that we have a list of employees with Microsoft Lists that I want to use and to manage using this kind of technology. And for the sake of it, I created a few custom flows, like, for example, a flow in Power Automate to add a new employee, or another flow in Power Automate to get an employee based on the email address of the employee. So here I have another custom Copilot that I created, this one, Employee Onboarding Copilot, in which I configured a few actions. Two of them are enabled, those in blue. The others are right now disabled, because you can always go here, click on the three dots, and enable or disable the action depending on what you want to do. Now I have a new, and I have an add new employee and a get employee name actions enabled. And I have my Copilot properly configured with single sign-on, with support for Teams channel and stuff like that, all topics that we have already been covering in the previous demo. So if you don't know how to do that, just have a look at the previous recordings and you will find plenty of information about how to do that. Now, as you can see, there is already an interaction right here, but I can play with this bot with this custom copilot, and I can ask questions like, get the name of the employee with the mail evakent.contoso.com. And here we can see that somewhere we have that employee. So I can trigger this request in my Teams chat with my custom copilot, and I will get back a response, which will be based on a query made on my Microsoft list, which is at the very end a SharePoint list. But what is really interesting that again, I can rely on the fact that the engine is able to understand natural language. So whether I will say, get the name of, or if I will say, who is the employee with a mail and providing an email, the natural language processing will be able to still understand that the intent of the user is still the same, will still trigger the same action, and do what I need to do. So, for example, I can even do stuff like add a new employee. Let me show you. Add a new employee with name Paolo, with a mail paolo@contoso.com, and role solution architect. If I will do that, I will trigger another action because now I'm targeting a different action and a different flow that I want to trigger. And by doing that, I will have my employee created in the list in Microsoft list. And if I refresh, I can see that there is myself now in the list of employees. And again, just to make it more challenging and more interesting, I would say, I can also say that, well, I want to create an employee, but I will just provide the name and the email. As I showed you before, in order to create an employee, in the previous example, I provided the name, email, and role, because in my list, that's what I'm looking for. So, sorry, let me go to the right tab. Let me do it. Add a new employee with name Paolo and email paolo@contoso.com. And look what will happen now. The engine is so smart that it will say, wait a minute, I also need a role. Can you tell me what the role is? Okay, and I can say marketing director, because why not? Marketing director, okay? I will do that. And now the action will be triggered with all of the settings, all the input arguments expected by my custom flow. So I think this is really, really powerful. Now, how does it work? Well, when you are in a custom Copilot in Copilot Studio, you simply create a new action. You choose a target flow. You can even filter the items that you want to see if you're targeting just flows. You choose the flow you want to use. And once you have done that, it will inspect the definition of your flow, identify the input and the output arguments. In this scenario, we have name, email, and role, and then we will see on the other side, so on the flow side, how the flow is defined. We have to edit all of the input arguments to provide a proper description for each of them so that the generative AI will be able to understand what we are talking about. So when I will provide my inputs, it will be able to match the arguments in the input with the input arguments that the flow is looking for. And once you have done with that, you can create the action and use it. And if you want, you can also create a new flow from scratch, starting from here. So you click on the plus here, and you say, create a new flow. What will happen will be that it will be created a flow in Power Automate. Let me show you the add new employee flow, just for the sake of showing you an example. And if I will edit this one, which is the one we have been using in the demo, here I have my run a flow from Copilot triggering action in flow. In this one, I define the three input arguments, the name, the email, and the role of the employee that I want to create. Then I simply rely on the regular definition of a flow in Power Automate. Nothing special, but using the create item action, I can create an item in my target list of employees in my target site collection, and I will simply get the three input arguments to set up the title, the email, and the role of my employee in the SharePoint list. And then using a compose action, but you can do again whatever you want, I'm simply composing a response message where I say the employee with name X, Y, and Z, email, and role X, Y, and Z was successfully created. This will be a value that I will provide in the result response of my respond to Copilot action, which is the one which will close the circle, the communication channel with the custom Copilot. So Theoretically, you can even keep on writing additional actions after this one, but you will need to have a run a flow from Copilot as the trigger one, and then the respond to Copilot to provide the feedback back to Copilot. And the same story applies to the other flow, the get employee name, where I simply defined again the run a flow from Copilot, where now the input is just one text input of with the email. I do the get item instead of the add item. I do the composition of the output, retrieving just the very first title of the very first item, and then I respond to Copilot, providing the name of the user. And that's how we can get this kind of response. The employee with the mail XYZ is a name and surname. Okay, so this is how you can do that. Now let me quickly go back to the presentation deck, and then I'm done. So things to keep into account: the flow and the bot need to share the same Dataverse environment, and the flow must be in a Power Automate solution. The flow values must be returned synchronously to Microsoft Copilot Studio, and the Cloud Flow invoked by MCS has to provide an answer within 100 seconds. So keep it into account. Eventually, as I said, you can do more right after having provided an answer to MCS, but you will have a timeout of 100 seconds. Plus the fact that MCS can only receive data of up to 1 megabyte in a single action. So keep it into account as well. The supported types for the parameters are just, at least at this time, number, string, and Boolean. And that said, these are some useful links that you can already find in the chat. And I think that I'm done with this demo as well. So back to you, Vesa, and thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo. Really, really cool. Now I have to make this joke because Jordan had an awesome joke or Cody had an awesome joke. Why can't Eva? Or can she?
It's a name of a character in a well-known story here in Italy. That's why.
So she can. So
she
why
can.
can't Eva? So, or can she?
Yeah, she can. She always can.
She can. Yes, of course. She can't. What? Anyway, cool. So really, really cool. Awesome demo. Awesome thing. And English pronunciation is so anyway. So that was the can't thing. But let's move to Eric. Eric is based in the UK, so you're well aware of the pronunciation things, right? Oxford English.
No, actually, I'm based in France, so I'm
based in France. Okay, there we go. Sorry for that. Europe is such a small area, so I know.
Agree, and UK is no longer part of Europe,
Yes. Complicated. Anyway, let's not go there. Yeah, people get. let's not start that discussion. We will lose half of the audience. Thank you, Son, from the chat. Now, Eric, I think you are sharing a screen.
Yeah. Thank you, Vesa.
And sorry, before you start, if you go a few minutes long, don't worry about it. But of course, if we hit the timing, all good. But just a word of a warning, if it goes a few minutes long, don't worry about it because we want to get the demo as an isolated thing. We can see the screen. Thank you for that. Take it away.
Thank you, Vesa. So first, I wanted to start by thanking the community because, I'm not a pro dev and very fluent with SPFX and ACE card and so on, but using all the samples that were available really make my work so much simpler. So I wanted to take the time just to thank everyone here. And I'm going to give back the sample to that same community because it felt like apropos as well. And that's Vesa convinced me to come over as well. So just to set the lay of the land, I'm part of the teams engineering. We engage with tons of customers building custom application. And one of my specialties working with frontline customers. And throughout that journey, we met a few customers that wanted to expose dynamic cards where the content would vary based on the user location or different parameters. And then so we quickly discovered that the out-of-the-box card extensibility and capability were not to the liking or up to the bar of what was needed for the customer. For example, that specific customer was serving 37 different regions, and they wanted to have 10 cards. And today, if you use targeting audience on the cards, it means you have a card per region, making your dashboard 370 card wide, which would be probably very hard to manage. So the idea was, let's try to put our brain together and build a custom solution to address that. On top of that as well, there was another thing, is obviously you don't want to put the burden of maintaining the solution and the content up to the SharePoint admin, and you want to delegate that to the local manager. And so we came up to try to create a custom card that would use SharePoint lists as your backend. And Paolo, I'm going back to you to have a bot filling that automatically. And using SharePoint list power and delegation to make sure that the local manager can add content. And as well, then when the frontline user connect to Viva Connection dashboard, he gets directly the content that is apropos for him without having to configure anything. So what we build is a very simple card I'm going to demonstrate that just read the usage location field from the login user, because that's a mandatory field. If you want to consume Office 365, you need to have a usage location. That should be your country. Otherwise, you're not totally compliant. And therefore, display the content that was filtered is based on that. So let's move out of the PowerPoint and to the environment. So the card is here. It's a large and medium card that you can use. It has a few properties, like you can customize out of the box the title, and we did build the part of creating the SharePoint list with a single button. So you don't have to worry to follow a big, lengthy procedure to create the list. That's done directly by the card itself. You click the button, and once the card is the list is created, the button is gray out, and you still have the shortcut to that list. The list is very simple. You provide a title, a description, the link of the content you want to consume, an image, because it's always cool to have an image, obviously the country, and we have as well a custom field that is open outside of Teams, because obviously our target audience is a mobile user, and if you use Viva Connections and opening links, those open in a sandbox by default, which is nice because you stay in Teams, you get the context, but can be a pain because you lose all the authentication and SSO, and that can be a problem. Or as well, you want to deep link to some external content, and you're blocked because you're sandbox. So if you check that checkbox, you'll be automatically open outside of Teams using the web browser of the device instead of the Teams browser. So you add your content, and dynamically that will show up in Teams. And it even works on the new Teams, because Paolo, I noticed that you were still using the old Teams. Be aware, in a few days, it's gone. And your card is very simple. You just need to click it, and you have a layer 2 UI that will display the content in the language of the user. So I'm in French, so I'm using it in French there. If I want to quickly show you the code that is not yet published but will come on during this week, we have obviously the default card code, where on the init we fetch using the Graph API the user location, and that's what we use to filter out the SharePoint list that is created here. Where we filter we filter here on the usage location. Obviously, you can change anything you want. If you want to use another parameter, that would make more sense and so on. But out of the box, that's the default thing. Obviously, following the different example, we built the solution to be multi-language. So all the strings are only stored in the language files, and you just have to update and make them your own. The only thing that is not simply exposed is the image of the adaptive card that is based on a base 64 on code there. Then, because I feel in a rush, I'm gonna try to share my mobile screen and do a live demo. if the demo gods are with me. Good. So let's go back to my main screen. Close that because we don't care. Open the Teams. Arrive to my dashboard. I can browse, and here I've got my DCC card I created. I click here. I only see the link in French because I'm French. I can open the first website, and that's within the sandbox. So no SSO, but I stay in Teams. And here I have a report in Power BI. And this one, I check the box outside of Teams. And if I click that, actually, that deep link me directly to the to my web browser. Not to my web browser, actually, to the native Power BI app, because Power BI has universal links. So you even bypass the web browser. And that's quite handy because you want to open an Instagram thing that would open Instagram and so on. So that's quite interesting. So within this week, it will be live on the community GitHub, and feel free to use it. We're happy to share. And with that, Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Really, really cool. I will ask offline, how did you share your mobile? Now, we do have a few minutes. I can't help myself. How are you sharing your mobile in the screen right now?
I joined the meeting with my...
you joined from a mobile and as a new device, and then you share. Okay, got it. You just share the screen from there. That's actually a good and simple way of doing that. That's much more simpler than I thought. We IT people tend to always think this in a too complex ways, right? So, but cool, really, very cool. Thank you, Eric, on that one. Really cool scenario, and again, a simple real-world use case related on how to make things actually work. Awesome scenario, and we are on the schedule. This is brilliant. So thank you, Majesty, thank you, Waldek, thank you, Paolo, thank you, Eric. Really, very cool demos today across the Microsoft Graph connectors and dev proxies to Copilot Studio, and then to the Microsoft Viva with SPFX and ACES. Really, really cool setup capabilities, and really shows the breadth of the Microsoft cloud as well. So there's so many options, so many things we can actually do over there. Now, quick recap or in teaser on what's happening next week. So next week, we obviously have the Tuesday call as we have it in every single Tuesday at 8 a.m., except for the summer break in the Northern Hemisphere. But we'll have Waldek joining us on extending Copilot for Microsoft 365 on a Graph connectors scenario again, a bit of a different Graph connector scenario, talking about those details in there. Mark Windel is back related on SharePoint Embedded using AI processing. So populate custom metadata on SharePoint Embedded files using AI processing. Really interesting scenario as well. And then Daniel Laskovich from Cloud Advocates is joining us on creating a prompt plugin for Copilot for Microsoft 365 with Microsoft Copilot Studio. A lot of Copilot words in that title, but really interesting scenario as well. So learning how to use the Copilot Studio for a plugin for Copilot for Microsoft 365. Interesting options. That's on next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Before that call, tomorrow we have the 8 a.m. Pacific time, the Power Platform monthly call, and then on Thursday we have the bi-weekly call as well. So a lot of community events this week as well. Now, if you are part of the community, actively in community, if you're in Discord, you might want to check this one option out as well. We do have more than 1,800 members already in our Discord server, and it's growing rapidly. It's actually pretty cool to see. This was more with all due honesty, this was kind of an experiment on seeing, hey, are people in a Discord? Are people using Discord? And clearly they are. A lot of active engagement on that Discord server across the community. So thank you for joining there and helping other people within the community as well. Now, I'm going to call out Armin's question, how can I join the Power Platform call tomorrow? Please check out all of the community calls at akms/community/calls, and you can download the recurrent invites from there. All of the individual calls, what we have and what we execute throughout the week or throughout the month are available from there. And then you can download the recurrent invite and it will be aligned with your time zone. If you create that by yourself, then there might be a bit of an adjustments there because of depending on daylight savings and how it works throughout the year. Now, for these calls, we're always interested on the feedback, what works, what doesn't work. If there are suggestions related on content, you want to have a demo on X and Y and Z, or you're looking into something else, but you didn't want to share that within the chat, please give us feedback. The feedback is also super important for us to show the value of these calls for our management chain and the leadership. So hopefully you like the course and then provide us positive feedback, so we're able to continue keeping these calls in the future. Now, given the numbers of an attendance site, we seem to be indicating that people are liking this course, so thank you for that and joining on the weekly setup. But that's it for now. The recording will be available within 24 hours at the Microsoft 365 Power Platform community YouTube channel. Maybe we should be dropping those, dropping the snow already, but the snow is still in Helsinki, so I guess I will get rid of those whenever the Helsinki is in the springtime. Within any of these months, spring will start in Finland. But recording, as said, 24 hours in the YouTube channel. Do subscribe there. Follow us on Twitter or in LinkedIn for updates. And then the next call is on March 26th. See you at the community calls. And thank you for joining today. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.